Hello YouTube, welcome to the third and final part of the series of videos of pictures of past projects that I've done. This one here, there's all kinds of different stuff, pictures of a damaged screw, there's pictures of a buildup that I done on one of the grinders, the finish pictures of the aerial that from video one, and pictures of a hammer that went through one of the plop grinders, and I talk about that some, and I hope you enjoy it. This was one of them pigtail screws. This was, and I think I've got pictures of the after of this, of what came out. So this was on one of them big feeders that I had to build the stands for. This screw would get jammed up and overamp the motor, and of course pop the reset. So they would hit the reset and try to run it again, and it would just keep flexing the screw, flexing the screw, flexing the screw. And inside of this feeder, you had these mixing arms, the counter rotating mixing arms to break stuff up, and eventually it flexed it up enough that it got tied up into this. And they were on two separate motors aside from the screw motors, so of course they kept turning, and eventually this thing jammed it up, those overamped and shut the thing down. Then at that point they take the side off from it and say, oh hell, we got a mess in here. And so they called me up here and wanted me to cut all this out, and I was, okay, I guess. What do you want me to cut it out with? It's all stainless. I can't just take a torch in here to cut this stuff out. I can, but it's just going to melt stuff and make a mess. So I think I ended up cutting most of this out with a freaking grinder. And this companies, this is why you don't let idiots run your machine. Hire people, train them properly. Don't let them do stuff like this, because it causes downtime. It causes more work for people like me, and mechanics that's got to deal with this stuff. Don't let idiots break your equipment. Fire them, discipline them, do something with them. That's just another picture of it. Yeah, this was the aftermath. This was all the little pieces that I pulled out of that thing, and of course it's trash, it's junk, and this wasn't a very old one either. I think that thing had only been in there like maybe, I don't know, like maybe 6 months or something like that. They had replaced it because of the same thing, and I don't know how much they cost. That wasn't part of my job. That wasn't my prerogative to know, but I'm sure they weren't cheap. They were not something you just go pick up off a shelf somewhere. They had to be made, and now it's in the scrap dumpster. What's this? This is some mill work I was doing. I had an old Induma mill, I think that thing was. And it was about slap wore out, man. That thing was. The bed was all worn on it and everything, but it worked. It was better than what I had before, which was nothing. I actually got this mill and set it in here, but I think I was doing some face milling on this. This is a heater, another heater bar heater. It's got a tube that runs down it, heating element runs down it, and I think we had them fabricated or got them from another company, and they were too wide. That's what it was. They were too wide here, and I ended up taking, I think, about a 1/4 inch or something off from them. This was a pretty handy little thing that I made. Actually, I think I made it for this job. It was just like a little support stand. You know, I didn't have any like little cool machinist jacks or anything like that. So, you know, a block of 2x4 bolted to a piece of angle iron, and I would take, you know, if it had to be shimmed up a little bit, I would take like actual wooden shims like you'd use in like framing a door, is how I would shim stuff up. Oh yeah, there's my thing from the beginning. All right, this was bolt extraction in a barrel section. I think is what it was. Yeah, yeah, for one of our big twin screw lines. They break these bolts off when they put them back together. Uh, so yeah, so they brought me the whole barrel section, which was this giant solid steel block with, you know, two holes in it for the screw to run through. And I think there's a whole series of pictures here. So way too big to put in, you know, put in the mill or anything like that. So I had this mag drill, this Milwaukee mag drill, and so mag it down to it. I think I actually put a couple pieces of angle coming off the table to set this thing on, and clamp it down to that angle. So mag it to, you know, mag it down, drill the hole, uh, weld up the holes because the threads were just gone, and you no chance of putting inserts or anything in these things. You know, we tried it. You'd put an insert in it, it'd last maybe a week, and they'd rip the threads out of the inserts. So yeah, I just weld them up, grind them down, and then re-drill and re-tap the hole. that is a that is a self-powered drill press operation there. You know, and I had to keep a constant pressure on it, and so yeah, a pipe wrench on a piece of stuck in a piece of pipe gave just about the right tension and pressure on it. And yeah, there's using you know, using a center to line up your tap. Yeah, that's old machinist trick there. And there are the holes all tapped up and finished and everything. I can't remember exactly how many I'd done on this. I know I can't remember the size. I think they were like 20 millimeter. It was a little bigger than 3/4. I remember that. Let's see. There's some kind of plate that I was drilling out. I think I remember I didn't want to take the vise off for some reason off the mill. I had I don't know, another job set up or something like that. So I just clamped in a piece of angle iron and clamped the plate to that. And I mean, it worked. You know, kept me from having to take the vise off. You know, no real load or anything like that. I wasn't that worried about it spinning out. This was one of the big feeders that I had to build a stand for. Like I said, there was two of them big feeders, and yeah, this is the one. Remember back the real long screw conveyor. This was the hopper and the long screw conveyor. This was the hopper that I made that went on top of it, and there was the other one uh, that I had to build. I think I had to build the stand for. I think that stand was like 4.5 or 5 feet tall, and you know, there's the catwalk up to the top. Yeah, they would take a forklift and raise up over top of this with a, you know, with a bag. They called them a super sack, which had a tied opening on the bottom of it, like a, you know, just like a sleeve coming down. They untie it and stuff would pour out into it. And there's a kind of a crappy picture of the other one. And there's another picture of more of them teeth supports in the other facility that I had to fix. Okay, this was the JLG style, the Simon lift. after I got the basket welded up on it. I remember being fairly easy. That I don't think the dead man switch worked on it. And I remember being fairly easy actually, because I jammed a piece of wood up into the foot pedal here, and was able to stand down there with a stick and run the controls and bring everything down to level, make it easier to weld on. And there's another shot of it welded up, finished up. Yeah, I had to fabricate a safety gate right here. I remember that. And there it was, all painted up. And I think we didn't have this thing for too long after that. I remember it wasn't too long after that they something had happened to it. I don't know if they blew the motor up in it or something, but I remember our guy that done our forklifts, our kind of like mobile equipment mechanic, he couldn't get it to run again, and or couldn't get it to run, and they eventually hauled it out. We loaded it up on a trailer and hauled it out somewhere. I don't know if they sold it at an auction or scrapped it or what, but yeah, no, they got, when I left, they had gotten another machine, another JLG that was newer, battery powered, slightly smaller, easier to maneuver around in the plant. There's a stand for a small like additive feeder that I had to build. I remember I splayed the front legs out on it too. I had to do that to give it a little bit of stability, uh, because it was very, very tippy, very top heavy. That one's sideways. I think these were legs for some kind of stand they wanted. They wanted to be able to adjust it in like 1 inch increments up, for various heights, uh, for for a small feeder, small vibratory pan feeder. I think they were. I think I built like four of these, and this is the only picture I took of the legs. I think I built like four of them stands. But yeah, you just it was square tube with angle. The angle went, I think, on the stand itself, and you could slide it down and put 1/2 inch bolts through, 2 1/2 inch bolts through each leg, or pins. I think we actually got them like sleeve pins, like lynch pin type, I think they're called. So they didn't have to unbolt. Okay, this series of pictures here, the old grinder that we had was just, I mean, slap wore out. It had so much stuff ran through it, and it was so, I mean, just abraded down and ate out, that they put it down for some kind of big service one time, and they decided that I could weld it back to a close enough dimension so that it would work better. That was their thinking. So I remember I think I used two full rolls of wire, 30-pound wire, so almost 60 pounds of welding wire into this thing. There were two halves. There was a top and a bottom half. I can't remember which one this one was. I think this was the bottom half. But yeah, this was a big old stack of beads here, and there's more pictures to this. And big, heavy, you not cast. It was machined. I mean, it was solid, solid metal. It wasn't a cast metal. But I had to preheat it, and it was a lot of work for not a lot of reward. But yeah, you can see over here on this side right here. See how that is dished in? That is supposed to be straight down to a sharp corner, and this was just wear right here, and this whole area right here was just concaved in. and it had to be all filled back in with weld, and then grind down, just hand grinding down. Of course, we didn't have any way to machine it down to shape. But yeah, just bead after bead after bead, and yeah, there's some aluminum that I'd stacked in here and clamped in to help me get a sharper corner on the beads, because of course the steel wasn't, ain't gonna stick to the aluminum, and just to give me some place to form against with welding bead, and yeah, there was a preheat that I was doing on it. Yeah, I took take a weed burner, a big propane torch, and set it up, and of course I got tired of holding this stupid thing, so drug a vise on a stand over and clamped it to it, and just let it sit there and burn for a little while. Yeah, and right next to some cardboard, so yeah, totally and completely safe. And yeah, there's more, just adding in bead after bead. You Yeah, see that whole area there's dished out. The rotor set in this area right here, and so this here was just all dished out, and so this is all fill weld right here. And then I took a big Wildcat 7-inch Wildcat grinder and ground it all down. I mean, as flat as I could get it, as good as I could get it. Yeah, there you can see, man, that thing, that's like probably at least, I don't know, inch and a quarter maybe, of bead from here to here. Yeah, just bead after bead after bead, and weld and grind and weld some more. I mean, this took me probably a good solid, 5 days, 4 to 5 days worth of welding to get this thing. Yeah, just more welding, and again, this machine, we ended up replacing it probably, I don't know, about maybe a year and a half after I did this. So really, what was the point of it? What was the point of me doing all this work if you're just going to replace the machine anyway? Um, I guess, yeah, it did help for a year. It may have saved so many millions of pounds of material, or something like that. But I don't know. That's why I don't get paid the big money. And yeah, there's just grinding it down. This was more wear. I mean, that stuff just ate up, just abrasion. Yeah, this is a flange on a piece of like 3 inch, I think it was 3 inch diameter pipe, and you can see just all this wear right here, and you can see, yeah, you can see see these little black dots here. That's pellets. That's plastic pellets all embedded down in there. You know, and I mean, how do you weld on that? You can't just weld over top of that. It pulls contaminant into your weld, makes porosity into your weld, makes for a shit weld, and so you would have to just replace it. You'd have to just cut it all out and replace the piece of pipe in it. And they couldn't have any contamination. The plastic, some types of plastic don't play with other types of plastic, so you had to get rid of it. More, this one here, it's kind of a blurry picture, but you can see this is one that I had patched before, and then it blew back out again. So they brought it back to me expecting another patch on top of my previous patch. What do you do? Just ate out. Okay, this was a hopper that I built for one of our big twin screw lines. This took some kind of mineral, additive that they used. It looked kind of remind you of talcum powder, and what they had before was not very good. It was all beat up, cracked up. Just we got tired of repairing it, and so I designed it and drew it out. And I don't think I got any pictures of the actual fabrication when I built it. But yeah, I built the entire thing from just raw steel. This was one of the few jobs I think where I got brand new steel. I'd ordered brand new steel and built everything from scratch with raw brand new steel. But yeah, it's got a right there's a vibrator, uh, a vibrating mechanism on the back. And I remember I double plated it up. I put a much heavier. This was built out of I think 3/16 and quarter plate, and I put a much heavier one there and rounded it so that it wouldn't get these little stress cracks in it. And they was real happy with it. They was real pleased with that one there. This was a set of sawhorses I built for for the fabrication shop. And if you notice, they're they're stacked up, they're nested up, and they're all actually the same height when you unnest them. And I made the the second one slightly wider than the first one, and the third one slightly wider than the second one, so that you could stack them and save a bunch of room in the shop. And I think they were built out of like inch and a half or inch and a quarter square tube, like 11 gauge wall square tube, and they were fairly strong. I had gussets in them here. They were fairly strong. I had quite a bit of weight on them. I mean, you couldn't park like a tank on top of them or something, but they were for what we'd done, they were plenty strong enough. And my only regret when I built them was that I didn't build four. That I only built three, and I wish I'd built four of them. Even if I just made two, you know, that's nested together and two that also nested together, and store two sets of them. I wish I would have done that. Uh, I wish I had, and I probably do somewhere, a before picture of this. This thing here, this podium or stand or whatever it is, there's a barrel that goes on top of this that's got a screw that runs in it. And I mean a big screw, like an 8-inch solid shaft screw. That's the actual extruder screw that actually pushes this plastic out of a die. And it had jammed up, and they pushed the barrel. They sheared off the bolts, and we're talking inch and a quarter bolts. They sheared the bolts off from it and pushed the barrel forward and pushed this thing forward about 8 inches. And it bowed this plate. This here is 1/2 inch plate. This here is 3/4 plate, I believe. It bowed this whole plate up about 6 inches. So I had to go in and cut this off, cut that plate off, put a new piece of plate down on, remount this, re-square it, reline it. I added this. They wanted me to add some kind of support gusset to it. I said the only thing I can do is put some channel on the back of it, unless you want me to box in the whole thing. But it still ain't gonna stop it. You do it again, it's something's gonna break. There's going to be a weak point. But yeah, this was that was a mess. That was a big mess right there. There's more drain covers. These things here. This was their filling pad. They back semi trucks up into here, and there's hoppers, storage tanks above it. to fill the semi trucks, and they'd run over top of these, and they got, over the years they just got beat up and bowed up, and and we'd had problems with with they'd pop out, and sometimes a semi tire would drop down in them, and it'd just become a pain. It was just a pain. So I took I had a mobile welder, a propane powered mobile Hobart welder generator. So I took it out there and pulled them all up and just basically straightened them out, re-welded them, re-welded the plates together, put heavier welds on them. A lot of them were just welded. Well, all of them were just welded on one side. So I actually welded on both sides of them, and I think I'd done like a root pass of 60-10 and two stringer passes of 70-18 eighth inch, and there was the bottom side of these things, and they were nasty. They were, oh God, it was a nasty job. Just all rusted up, and just I'd use the 60-10 to burn into it. 60-10, you can burn through rust with 60-10, and then I'd clean it all up, brush it all up, and run 70-18 bead on it. What was that? That was I think that was like a sifter type thing that they had me make. I'll come back to that one. Yeah, this was like a sifter type thing that went over top of a box so they could pour, I don't know, buckets of stuff on top of it and kind of like strain it out by hand. Misery 2. Yeah, there's a story behind this. With you got to have a story behind that. This was a B&O hammer, I think they called. It's like a railroad hammer, and it was actually my hammer that I brought in. It was an old one that I had that I got somewhere. But anyway, I brought it in, and they wanted it to break these plops up with. And it had a fiberglass handle in it, I think, and of course they broke that, I think, probably the first day. So anyway, so next I put they wanted me to weld. It worked great though. They liked it. They wanted me to put another handle on it. So at first I put a solid, a piece of solid rod, like a piece of 1 inch, 1.5 inch solid rod in it. And then, of course, they complained that was way too heavy, which it was. It was heavy. Hence the name Misery. That was misery number 1. And so they didn't take them long. They broke that, likely on purpose. So anyway, so they wanted it a little lighter. They still wanted to use it. So I used a piece of pipe, rather than a solid rod. And I built this bolster to go over the top of it to kind of strengthen it. And, done them like a duct tape wrap handle, and put this big nut and, big bolt on the end of it as a pommel, like, so they could, hit stuff like that with it. And it worked great. They loved it. They got a kick out of the name on it. They thought that was cool and stuff like that. Then this happened. I've got pictures on here somewhere. Let me scroll through. Okay. So then this happened. They call me to come over to the grinding area, and this is actually the head of that hammer. They dropped it into the grinder by accident, of course. And this is a piece of 1/2 inch plate metal. Luckily, this is the bottom or top of the grinder, and nobody was hurt. There was no injury on it, but it threw this chunk, this probably 5-pound chunk of metal through a piece of 1/2 inch plate steel, and of course just annihilated the hammer. there is what was recovered of the hammer. This, remember, this thing is a giant wood chipper, and I mean, just totally destroyed the hammer, destroyed blades on the machine. Uh, now, and also put a big hole in it. So yours truly, okay, there's one of the blades that we pulled out of it, and there's yours truly up inside of this thing, welding in a patch piece, so they could still use this. As far as I know, of course, I was a nobody, but as far as I know, no disciplinary action. Nobody got suspended, time off. Nothing really happened of it other than, oh, well, we broke it, but, we got it fixed now, so drive on. I mean, how do you do that? If that was my machine, like my personal machine or my company, I'd have somebody's head over that. Even though, yes, it was an accident, but that is still unacceptable. That is still unacceptable to do that much damage to a piece of equipment. This was another quench tank, and I actually built this. This was actually like the third iteration of this thing. Again, like all other quench tanks, I couldn't form anything that big, so we had another company make the actual tank. I built the frame and supports and everything like that, and then at one point they decided it was too low, so I had to raise it. And at another point they decided it was too high, so I had to lower it. And then at this point they decided it was too long, so I had to cut it in half and make two short ones for some reason. I don't know. At this point of my time at this job, I just didn't even question, just done, gave them what they wanted, knowing it was wrong, and just carry on. I think that was another feeder over top of one of the smaller lines, and I built this catwalk above it and this catwalk above it. And they actually both served almost the same purpose, was that this one here allowed them to access this area of the feeder and remove a section for cleaning, and then you went up another little short flight of steps to this area of the feeder to access another area to clean. A normal person would just take a JLG or a forklift with a man basket, and but they didn't want to do that. They wanted catwalks. These were aluminum totes that they would use, to put material in, and there's like the sock on the bottom, that they could tie up, and they just beat the hell out of these things. I mean, I would do I would do like 6 or 7 of these things every 6 or 7 months, that they had beat up enough that they finally bring them down, to me to work on. And, they were aluminum, so, it wasn't hard work, but it was just tedious and time consuming to have to try to straighten them and try to repair them. This here was a aluminum conduit, bent with a conduit bender, to make this radius, and spool gun it all in. And again, couldn't have any cracks or voids or places, areas of contamination, where where material could get stuck. And a lot of that, like I said, that plastic, a lot of it wouldn't play well with the other type of plastic. Okay, these here, these were screens for the grinder that kind of controlled the diameter of the regrind. And for a while we couldn't get these. We didn't have a supplier. We didn't have a vendor for them. So I would take these old ones that we had that had been damaged, and I would cut pieces out of the ones that were damaged to repair, and repair and patch ones that hadn't been damaged, or areas that had been damaged on other ones. This was the day I got my lathe. When I first started this place, we didn't have anything really as far as metal fabrication and metal working. They had welders and stuff like that here and there, but they didn't really have a place to do it. It was just do it wherever. And so they gave me control of this building, and I actually built I already had a bandsaw in there and a shear in there. Overhead crane was in there, and some steel racks were in there. So they obviously at some point somebody was planning on working out of this as a fabrication shop, but for some reason it had gotten dropped, or they didn't carry on, and then new management took over. I got hired. They gave me control of this building, and I eventually I got a mill, I got a lathe, I got better welders. I got a bandsaw, a couple other pieces of equipment. This was the lathe. This was an old Ackelson lathe. I think 16-inch swing. I don't remember the bed size. 54-inch maybe. But man, I love this thing. I love this lathe. They still use it to this day. It still runs. It was in great shape for its age. Is 40s model, and I put a quick change tool post on it, and that's pretty much all I did to it. It didn't need anything else. All the gears run in it. It had very little noise on it. Very little run out on it. It was just a great piece of machine. I was so happy to get that. So happy to get that machine. There was the kind of the machine shop area, and one of the few times, I think I probably took this picture because it was one of the few times it was actually halfway clean. But yeah, this was where the lathe. This is where I set the lathe at. This was the mill. This was my the TIG welder that we had. Old Lincoln Idealiarc TIG stick combo. And then this is where I would do most of the TIG work, that I do here, at this, kind of lower set down table. This over here was our tool cage, where we kept, our boxes, or at least the welders and fabricators and machinists, which there was only 3 of us at any one given time. But we would keep our boxes and our personal tools in there so we could secure them up at night and on the weekends and stuff. I got 4 more pictures here to talk about. This is the bottom of one of those totes, one of those aluminum totes, and they wanted to put an air actuated valve on it so that they could pick it up with a forklift and jack air to it and flip a lever and open a valve to dump it rather than having the sock on it. And okay, that's a viable idea. That's that's a good idea, really. So I made the flange, put the valve on. They promptly broke it off. I mean, I'm talking about promptly. It was like not even 2 days, they bring this thing back down to me with the valve laying inside the tote because a guy had hit it with a forklift hard enough to break the flange off from it. So obviously we got to do some idiot proofing here. So I put the valve back on the flange, and weld the flange back to the tote, and then built this armor box around it. And I say armor, but it's still all aluminum. It just gave them something to hit before they hit the important parts. Is all it done. Yeah, and I mean it's just I think it was 1/4 inch aluminum, all 1/4 inch, and spool gunned in. I don't even remember what I used. Probably 40-43 on the spool gun. That was a little slice of nightmare hell there. That was a blender that we had that would break quite often. These arms, these ribbons would break, and somebody would have to go inside and weld it back together, and usually that somebody was me. So yeah, that's me down inside, and one of my helpers taking a picture of me, laughing at me. But you always had to have a hole watch on this though too. And we had ventilation. We had forced air ventilation to suck fumes up out of it. But it was a nightmare to go down inside this thing because it was slick. It was all stainless steel. You couldn't get a grip, to really stand up on it. That's, usually I'd just sit down and just kind of straddle the shaft, of that the ribbons were on to weld it back together. And I think this is the last picture here. This is an old picture. I don't even remember what I took this with. This was a line puller that I'd built. I think just after I first started there. I think this might have been one of the very first things that I actually fabricated in this shop. That I actually got to build from scratch. But yeah, I built everything on this except for, of course, the motor and this drum right here. Everything else was fabricated. And this thing, it was on a air operated foot switch, and you'd step on it and it would raise this up, and you'd pull the strands into it, and it'd kind of help pull them on down the line. And I ended up making, I don't know, 2 of them at least, I can remember. But they were, we had 3 or 4 of them also, and I just kind of copied the design is what I did. So that's my series of videos, YouTube, of past project pictures, and I hope you enjoyed them. And again, like, comment, subscribe, and if you like seeing this type of stuff from my channel, leave me a comment, and I'll try to dig up some other pictures. I know they're out there somewhere. I used to have a Photo Bucket account. Maybe I can dig a few things off from that. But anyway, I enjoyed making these videos. I enjoyed talking about stuff I'd built and sharing with you all and everything. And again, you have a nice day, and we'll catch you on the next one.